All right, today I'm talking about being bald and how that happened. I've seen a lot of videos online of people talking about their experience of shaving their head for the first time and how liberating it was for them. But for me, I don't really feel like it was that liberating at first. At this point in time, like today, I don't give a shit. Nobody else gives a shit. I don't give a shit. Like it's sad and unfortunate, but it's just something that happened and I'm comfortable with it. But when I first shaved my head, I fucking hated it. I was like, oh no, what have I done? While simultaneously knowing that it was the right thing to do, I really had to sit with myself for a long time after doing it because I felt like I looked different from how I felt, if that makes sense. Now, just to sort of give you the context of why I did this, the story is that during the pandemic, lots of people weren't able to go and get their hair cut. So a bunch of friends of mine were talking about shaving their heads, and I thought, hey, that's a great idea. I wonder what I would look like with like a buzz cut. That light just flickered a bit. I hope that doesn't happen again. And anyways, I pulled my fringe back. I had a sort of swoopy fringe at the time, if you can imagine. Maybe I'll put a picture on screen or a little clip or something. And it was the first time ever that I had noticed that I was receding, and you can probably still see the receding now. It's kind of like the McDonald's M on my forehead. And this was the first time that I'd noticed it, but apparently, according to my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, Lena, this had been happening for our entire relationship. Apparently, the first time she saw it was like a couple of days into our relationship, and she was like, I guess that's just not something that we're talking about. So, first of all, wild that I just hadn't noticed. My hair had never really sat right. Like, I always found that, like, you adjust your hair and it just immediately went in the wrong place. And every time I would go into like a public bathroom or whatever and looked at myself in the mirror, I'd be like, God damn, I've been walking around like this? Like, that's not styled at all. I could never figure it out. And in hindsight now, it's like, oh, I must have just been like receding. So the hair was always just not sitting properly because there's a gap here, you know? But yeah, I didn't know at the time until the pandemic, looked at myself with the fringe up and was like, oh shit, that's receding. So from then on, I went down this sort of internet rabbit hole, as a lot of people do, of like, okay, what are the options here? There's different chemicals you can put on your head. You can get surgery and get a hair transplant, or you could shave it. Now, initially I was like, hell no, I don't think I would suit that at all. And I did go down the rabbit hole of looking at the other options, and it wasn't for me. I didn't want to put chemicals on my head. First of all, really expensive. Also, I don't know, that just made me feel weird, like putting chemicals on my head or taking a drug to make my hair grow back. Just wasn't comfortable with that. The idea that I would be dependent on a drug to boost my self-confidence, because my self-confidence was so tied to my hair, I felt uncomfortable with that. And when I looked into the prospect of getting a hair transplant, once again, insanely expensive. But not only that, but like, you've still got to take drugs after you've done it. It's essentially plastic surgery. And then once you've had the surgery, they're like, you've got to take drugs for the rest of your life so that this doesn't fall out again. And then, you know, even then, sometimes your hair might still fall out. So none of those options seemed very much like something that I would want to do. So then what are you left with? Wearing a wig? Don't really fancy doing that either. And then there's the option of shaving it. Now, the issue with shaving it was that I just felt like it wasn't going to be very me. And in a way, I still don't feel like it's very me in terms of, it's really hard to explain. Growing up, I was never a particularly like proper macho masculine guy. And I'd always been comfortable with that. I'd not really been insecure about it, but in terms of how I looked, I guess I'd leaned into that. I presented how I felt. And shaving my head kind of felt like something that at least I considered to be something that macho masculine men did. As I say, when I did it, I felt like, oh my God, I do not look how I feel. It's really hard to like properly explain, because, you know, your hair is such a big part of your identity. And I guess when I was in my 20s, which I was at the time when this happened, I was 25, 26, I just thought, oh, I'm just going to have this floppy fringe forever. Nothing else really suits me. I think the reason nothing else suited me is because I was receding, and a lot of the jigsaw pieces kind of fit together now, but at the time I was like, wow, this is the only haircut that suits me. Yeah, it suits you because everything else, as soon as you go short, this starts playing havoc. So here I am, I've had my hair shaved off, and I feel really insecure and I hate it. But at the same time, I don't think I can go back, because now I know that this is here. I don't want to be covering it anymore. I think the reason that I didn't just stick with the fringe is, even though I did sort of wait around for about a year before I did it, is I was more scared of looking like I was trying to cover it up than just owning it, you know? So I felt really shit about myself, but I knew that there was no real option to go back. Like, I just thought I will feel worse if I do grow my hair back out. So the only way was just to go through and expose myself to the fear of, like, oh God, I think I'm ugly now. This was the other thing. When I was growing up, I thought I was good looking, okay? It's a bit cringe to say, I'm a bit embarrassed to say it, but I did. When you lose the source of the thing that you think makes you good looking, what you're left with is like, okay, who am I beyond physical appearance? It sounds really profound, but genuinely, like, I think that that's what I had to sit with for a long time. And it did take a long time. It took a few years before I was like, all right, fine. It's essentially exposure therapy of like, okay, I don't feel very good about myself, but I'm going to go outside with my head shaved and let people see me and show it to people that I know and let the world see what it looks like. And over time, what you learn is nobody really cares. You might get a weird comment from a friend, or a weird look and oh yeah, oh it looks good, yeah, from another friend or family member. Or you might get an auntie or something saying to you, oh, I think you should have just left that. But ultimately, like, nobody spends a lot of time thinking about it. People are wrapped up in their own lives. I feel like I also need to acknowledge the fact that I'm a bloke, and it is way more socially acceptable for a bloke to be bald. We are talking specifically about male pattern baldness here. So the fact that it does happen to a lot of guys does help. People are less likely to be like, well, that's fucking crazy that you did that, you know, because that's what happens to dudes. I don't have any experience of not being a bloke, so I can't really comment on what it's like to be bald and not a guy, but just felt like I need to acknowledge that at this point. So yeah, a lot of trying to get comfortable with myself. I think part of it was like almost changing how I dressed. Not completely, but suddenly a lot of my clothes didn't really suit me anymore. I think that was another weird thing. I used to dress in like sort of baggy band merchandise and skinny jeans, and then suddenly that looks fucking weird. I suppose that trend had died 10 years before, and I was like, I'm just going to dress how I dressed as a teenager because I don't know what else to do. So that was probably for the best anyways. I feel like something that really helped was actually like getting some different clothes that suited how I looked now, and I feel like I'm really happy with my wardrobe now, and the things that I have suit me. So that was something. There was a lot of troubleshooting with like learning how to shave my head as well, and there were some nights where I just got really sad because it took ages, or like, you know, I've got a very sensitive skin apparently because I used to bleed all the time with a wet shave. So now I figured out a technique that takes me not very long at all. So I'll just do an electric shave if it's only a day or two since I last shaved, or if it's been a little bit longer, I'll do a wet shave with the grain, not against the grain, with the grain, and then I'll do an electric shave, and that makes me not bleed and feel good about myself. So I think part of this process of getting comfortable with yourself is letting go of believing that part of your value comes from part of your physical appearance. Now I know that people have preferences, and some people just prefer people that have hair, and that's just a fact. But some people like people that are bald as well. Like, you know, my wife married me when I was bald, and she'd known me for 4 years not bald, and then another 4 years bald. And she was like, I still like it, man. But just letting go of this notion of like, my value comes from being attractive. If someone said you could have a great hairline and your hair back right now, then I'd be like, I probably still would want that. But because I don't, the only option is to be like, all right, I got to sit with this. What is this? What's going on? I don't think that I look as good as when I had hair, but I do think that I look better than if I was trying to fight it and was like balding, you know? Now, you might be saying, well, Craig, you're married, so good for you, but some of us are out here single and bald and nobody's gonna love me. And honestly, like, my opinion on that is, if there's someone that you have great chemistry with and that you get on really well with and they won't date you because you're bald, then you've dodged a fucking bullet, because you don't want to be dating someone like that anyways. Ultimately, male pattern baldness can't physically hurt you. It's tough to deal with, but like, it's just an appearance thing. And it's nothing that some exposure therapy and like reckoning with yourself can't get you through, you know? And if you want to take the chemicals and the drugs and get all the surgery and stuff, then that's cool too. But for me, I think that there's a good chance that that will eventually fail, and you still wouldn't have dealt with the fact that you're like, all right, who am I without hair? You know? Now, if you want my advice, which nobody asked for, but I'm gonna give it to you anyways. If you're balding and it's really bothering you and you're thinking about it a lot and you're checking it a lot, then just be bald, man. Like, it's honestly not that bad, says the bald guy. It does get a bit cold in the winter in the UK, so you do need to bring a woolly hat around with you, but it's fine. Being bald is fine, it's normal. The stat that I read is that like for every 10 years you're alive, you get another 10% added to your chances of experiencing male pattern baldness. So like when you're 20, you've got a 20% chance, or is it like 20% of men? It's either you've got a 20% chance or 20% of men have already experienced male pattern baldness. One of the two. I can't remember. What can I say, man? It happened to me when I was 25, so 25%. That's hard, man, that's hard. There's also such a dumb stigma because like, some people put on weight more easily. Some people, like me, can't put on weight at all, no matter how much they try. Some people have hair, and some people have receding hairlines and go bald. I think that's all I really wanted to talk about. Like, just be bald. It's fine. I think that's all I had to say. All right, in a bit.